A pair of wide-eyed teenagers fall head over heels for one another.
They hit it off as soon as they seen each other.
And they really appeared to be in love with each other.
But their romance takes a dark turn when this loving girlfriend vanishes in the middle of the night.
Something's going on for real. She's really, really missing.
They wondered, where was she? Who took her?
As detectives scramble to unlock this mystery, a grieving mother uncovers a young woman's most intimate secrets.
I immediately opened up some pages of the diary, and she described what happened.
That emotional distress that she was living under, that pain.
As the search for her intensifies, a horrifying theory emerges.
You got someone out there that may be preying on 15-year-old girls.
November 24th, 2010. It's a chilly fall morning in Forest Park, Georgia, a working-class suburb of Atlanta. In the woods just west of town, two men are scavenging for scrap metal.
They are walking along this walking trail behind these apartments in Forest Park.
There was a dumpster nearby, so it was junk in the woods, basically.
They want to make some money, and they're looking for metal in the woods.
They saw the mattress, and they knew that inside the mattress are these metal coils. So they picked the mattress up to get the metal out of it.
When they lifted the mattress up, they saw a skull.
Is that what I think it is?
Attached to the skull are severely decomposed human remains.
Of course, they're very alarmed by this, and they contact police.
As patrol officers race toward the scene, they can't help but wonder if the body these two drifters have discovered represents a tragic end to their year-long search for a missing teenager, and if the mystery of what happened to her has come to a gruesome end.
Her mother was still hopeful that the person that was found in the woods was not her daughter.
Candace Parchment was a 15-year-old girl chasing the American dream. Born in Jamaica in 1994, Candace immigrated to America with her mother, Martisha, when she was young, and they eventually settled in Forest Park.
Forest Park is a quaint little community, multi-ethnic. It's a quiet place. It's known for its farmer's market. You can get some of the best fruits there.
Generally, when a child is moving to another place, it's very difficult in trying to figure out, will I be accepted? Will people accept me? How do I fit? What do I need to do? And so we have this belief of being westernized. How do I come to America and be able to assimilate into a culture that's not really mine?
But with her warm smile and buoyant spirit, Candace had no problem fitting in.
Hey, Candace.
Hey, Justin.
Candace was extremely outgoing, exuberant personality, never a dull moment with her. A high-spirited person.
Her personality was something that when you saw her, it actually would capture people.
She was popular amongst her friends. A lot of people gravitated toward her energy.
Candace just loved being around people. People loved being around her, and they liked seeing that beauty that was through her inside and outside.
Even though she was only a freshman in high school, it was clear Candace had real artistic talent.
Candace was a budding young artist. She wanted to translate that into a career in fashion.
She had the educational opportunities. She could possibly become that designer that she wanted to become.
But despite her talent and her popularity, Candace's home life wasn't quite so perfect.
Her mom worked a lot of times, sometimes late into the night or overnight in a position as a certified nursing assistant. So there were many times that she would be left at home by herself, caring for herself, getting her dinner, getting her homework done.
Home alone for hours on end, Candace often used the time to write in her diary. And like many girls her age, one of her favorite subjects to write about was boys.
A lot of boys were interested in Candace, but she didn't take the bait until Derek Bailey came along.
Derek Bailey was 16, so he was right around Candace's age, and he grew up in the Forest Park area. So who better for her to be able to go to and able to help her to understand the dynamics of the Forest Park area, Forest Park High School. He had relatives that were there, so he knew exactly what to do.
Derek is extremely talented. Anything music, anything creative, anything artistic, a lot of women thought he was a very handsome young man.
Charming, creative, and athletic, it was easy to see why Derek took up so much space in Candace's diary. And it didn't take long for Candace to realize Derek had a crush on her as well.
Hey, Candace. Hey, I was wondering if you would like to go to the movies with me sometime. It could be my treat.
That'd be amazing.
Really?
Here's my number.
I remember him telling me, like, hey, I have a thing for this girl. And, like, yeah, let me meet her. And then I'm like, oh, well, I already know her. This is my buddy. This is Candace.
Call me.
I will. I definitely will.
Before the end of Candace's freshman year, Derek had gone from her secret crush to her steady boyfriend.
Derek and Candace's relationship was a pretty tight-knit one. They were two peas in a pod.
They loved each other. They idolized each other. He was someone she could trust. She knew that he would have her back.
Candace and Derek's relationship seemed like the quintessential high school romance. But little did her friends and loved ones realize that this dreamy chapter of Candace's young life wouldn't culminate with a storybook ending, but rather with an inexplicable disappearance.
Candace wasn't showing up for school, making contact with friends or anything. No one had seen her.
When word got out she was missing, people were scared. Maybe there's a kidnapper, maybe she ran away. There was a lot of different speculation going on.
By the spring of 2010, 15-year-old Candace Parchment had a bright and promising future. Her budding talent as an artist had her dreaming of one day becoming a fashion designer. And her relationship with handsome classmate Derek Bailey had morphed from a secret crush into a full-blown first love.
Derek and Candace really cared about each other. Despite the fact that they were both so young, they really appeared to be in love with each other.
Candace was a vivacious, fun-loving, sort of free spirit type of girl. She loved life and she had dreams. She was a typical teenager.
But what nobody in the quiet suburb of Forest Park, Georgia realized is that Candace Parchment's dreams were about to unravel in the most terrifying of ways. It all started around 12:40 a.m. on April 28th.
Candace's mom arrived home from work, working late into the evening was customarily her schedule.
Candace was in her bedroom with the television on. Her mother went into the bedroom to turn the TV off. Candace was still awake, actually, and wanted to continue to stay up.
What are you still doing up? I'm watching my show. 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes.
Okay, Mom.
Love you, sweetie.
I love you too.
Have a good night.
The following morning around 6:30, Morticia rises to wake Candace up for school.
Candace, sweetie, it's time to get up. We're gonna be late. Candace.
Her mother knows that she wasn't home, and she called and the phone went to voicemail several times. And that was an immediate concern for her mother.
Hey, this is Candace. Leave a message.
At first, Morticia believes her daughter may have already left for school. But an hour later, she receives a call from the principal's office at Forest Park High, informing her that Candace hasn't shown up for class.
Hello? She was trying to convince herself she's okay, everything's gonna be fine. But in the recesses of her mind, there was that fear that something probably had happened.
As Morticia grabs her car keys and prepares to go look for Candace, she receives a text from her.
The first one said that I'm okay, but it wasn't I''M okay, it was AM okay.
But it's the next text Morticia receives that truly unnerves her.
The other one said she was in Tennessee, which the mother thought was unusual.
She became even more suspicious. Why would she go to Tennessee? She knew at that point, we have to find Candace. Something is not right. She would maybe leave the house and sneak out, but she wouldn't go to Tennessee.
It isn't merely the content of the text messages that disturbs Morticia, it's the way they're worded.
Her mother thought it was very odd. The way Candace would speak was very wordy. It's not very simple, short, one-letter words or small sentences.
Candace's mom knew her daughter well enough to know that this didn't even sound like something that she would write.
Again, Candace's mother tries calling her phone.
She called the phone and it kept going to voicemail. No one picked up.
Hey, this is Candace. Leave a message.
With no avail, Morticia contacts Clayton County Police and informs them of what's transpired.
Clayton County Detective's Office.
They tell her there's no need to panic, at least not yet.
We were thinking that she was a runaway, and possibly that was her sending those text messages Back then, on a weekly basis, Clayton County had about 15 to 20 runaway reports that detectives worked.
Police ask Morticia if there's anyone Candace might be with, or at the very least would know where she was headed. Morticia can only think of one person.
Maybe this boy's school named Derek.
If there was anyone that she would tell if she was going to run away, it would have been Derek.
Police check with the school, thinking the couple may have left together, but they learn that unlike Candace, Derek arrived at school on time that morning.
He was located at the high school. Police went there and began their investigation.
Derek, these gentlemen here are from the Clayton County Police Department and would like to ask you a few questions.
Detectives ask Derek if he knows where Candace is. To their surprise, Derek claims he had no idea Candace was missing and appears just as concerned about her disappearance as her mother.
Did Candace say anything to you about being upset or running away?
No, nothing I can remember, no.
Did she say anything to you about going to Tennessee?
Tennessee?
Derek took it hard. He couldn't understand what was going on.
When's the last time you saw Candace?
I just saw her after school yesterday. I walked her home, kissed on the cheek, told her goodbye. She said she would see me tomorrow.
According to Derek, things were great between him and Candace. He loved her dearly. He had no idea what could have led to her disappearance.
With Derek unable to provide any information as to Candace's whereabouts, police turn to her other friends and classmates, but they too draw a blank.
But this time, no one's been able to contact her. The local police department was asking us questions about it, but we haven't seen her or talked to her, and it was very strange.
She was actively involved in school, had a lot of friends. There's no indication that she was inclined to run away for any reason.
No closer to understanding where Candace went or why. That afternoon, police returned to headquarters and began scouring Candace's social media profile for clues.
The last entry she made on her social media account was before she was missing, and there was no additional information put on her social media accounts.
Candace's friends don't stop trying to get a hold of her either.
So we reached out on social media, called her number. We could not contact her.
Though it's been less than 24 hours since Candace disappeared, investigators are already beginning to fear the worst.
Is this more than a missing persons case? Could this be a case of foul play?
The following morning, with Morticia's permission, police search her home for potential clues as to what happened.
Candace's mom worked in a hospital, and many times Candace found herself at home, pretty much having to be on her own and take care of herself.
They looked throughout that house from top to bottom, looking for any evidence that Candace was kidnapped.
They checked the doors, the windows, Candace's room. They searched everywhere.
But police find nothing inside the home to support the theory that Candace was abducted.
Detectives go to Candace's house. They canvass it, they scrub it, they look throughout that house. They see no forced entry. They see nothing that leads them to believe that somebody took her.
There's just no evidence at all that she had been kidnapped.
With no evidence of foul play, police inform Morticia that for the time being, they have no choice but to treat Candace as a runaway.
We don't think the person took her from her home. I think she freely left on her own.
In the days and weeks to come, details will emerge that will turn this investigation on its head and reveal that Candace Parchment's seemingly normal life was one filled with painful secrets. Secrets that may have ultimately led to her demise.
Many times teenagers go through trauma and they have things happen in their lives, but they won't tell their parents.
It shocked me when the story came out. The school was shocked. I believe everyone was shocked.
It's been 48 hours, and police in Forest Park, Georgia are struggling to find missing 15-year-old high school freshman Candace Parchment.
After Candace was missing, her mother received a series of text messages saying that she was in Tennessee, that she was okay, but her mother knew that wasn't her nature just to up and leave.
Investigators initially suspected she was a runaway because it's a fairly common thing, and it just happens frequently. For a variety of reasons, they just might leave home.
However, a lack of activity on Candace's social media accounts has police speculating that there's more to her disappearance than meets the eye. Over the next 4 days, that speculation continues to grow, as neither friends nor family nor Candace's beloved boyfriend, Derek Bailey, receive any contact from her.
Investigators were able to determine that she was not using her phone.
There was no contact, and that was very unusual. Even runaways contact family members just to let them know that they're okay. You don't have to worry about them.
That's what kind of had everyone freaking out. Like, oh, where's Candace?
With still no sign of Candace, both her friends and police become convinced that something ominous was at play.
After, time elapses and you have a young girl, 16 years of age, who you assume would have difficulty, sustaining herself, you have to begin to believe that something more serious than someone running away has occurred.
They suspected foul play. There was just nothing to prove it.
But after the initial search of Candace's home yields no evidence of kidnapping, detectives wonder if someone coaxed Candace into voluntarily leaving her home with them the night she disappeared.
If someone did lure her outside, it would have been in the middle of the night, and it had to be someone that she knew. And who is usually responsible for luring teenage girls outside after curfew? Teenage boys.
Nobody knew Candace better than her boyfriend, Derek Bailey. And on May 5th, investigators obtained parental consent to formally interview him at police headquarters.
Where were you the night of Candace's disappearance?
I was at home. You can call my parents.
They were able to take that alibi, and they verified it with his family. He was there all night long. He didn't leave. Mom and Dad were able to say that he was at home.
At this point, detectives don't suspect Derek of having anything to do with the disappearance of Candace.
All right, Derek, you can go.
With Derek Bailey eliminated as a suspect, investigators decide to take a broader look at Candace's disappearance and wonder if Candace met the same fate that had befallen a handful of other young women in the area.
Young female runaways, it's not unusual for them to be lured into prostitution. We have a problem with that kind of activity here in Clayton County.
We really know that in the Atlanta metropolitan area, sex trafficking is a big problem. There have been conferences. There are workshops on it all the time. There are more people fly in and out of Hartsfield Airport where they can come into the city, pick up young girls. They can take her, kidnap her, take her to another country, to another state, and she's used and misused and abused.
And so that certainly has to be a question in detectives' mind, whether or not she has been perhaps kidnapped and gotten herself into a sex trafficking situation.
For the next 6 months, police scour Metro Atlanta for signs of Candace's whereabouts. They also file nationwide reports with several missing children organizations, but none of these efforts lead them any closer to Candace.
We were just going through the motions, trying to figure out what we've missed, and we were re-reviewing the case, see if we missed any details, and we were coming up with a game plan to go to the next step.
We were absolutely worried about our well-being, absolutely. You're speculating, maybe it was this or maybe it was that.
Then, on November 24th, 2010, the search for Candace Parchment takes a grim turn.
It's the day before Thanksgiving. These two men are walking in this walking trail looking for scrap metal. They see a mattress. They're probably wondering if there's some scrap somewhere around there.
Hey, check it out, jackpot.
Police get a call that these two men found a body under this mattress in this wooded area.
Once on the scene, CSIs are able to determine the remains clearly belong to a female, but there's little else with which to identify the body.
There was nothing really left except bones, clothing, and jewelry.
They wonder, could this be the body of Candace Parchment?
A subsequent DNA test confirms that the remains are in fact those of Candace. Detectives are now faced with the difficult task of informing Candace's loved ones of her death.
Her mother was devastated. She was having a really difficult time processing what was going on.
I was completely shocked. Just as shocked and surprised as everyone else. It was pretty tough.
As Candace's mother, boyfriend Derek, as well as classmates and friends come to grips with this devastating news, the Clayton County Coroner's Office performs an autopsy on Candace's remains.
When the autopsy was done, the medical examiner did find an injury to the sternum of the skeleton, which indicated a stab wound. So the manner of death was labeled as a homicide, and the cause of death a likely stabbing.
Though authorities have determined Candace's probable cause of death, there's no additional evidence that could help identify her killer. However, investigators note that the cause of death is similar to that of another homicide, one that took place several months back in neighboring DeKalb County.
Same MO.
She was a 15-year-old Hispanic female working in the Mexican grocery store, and ended up getting kidnapped while taking a break sitting inside of her truck. And we found her body 7 days later. She was also stabbed.
They immediately started looking into whether this guy could be connected to Candace's case.
It's a possible serial killer.
You got someone out there that may be preying on 15-year-old girls.
With the discovery of her remains in woods just outside of town, the search for missing 15-year-old Forest Park, Georgia resident Candace Parchment has come to a tragic end.
Based on the autopsy, the medical examiner thought that the cause of death was a stabbing injury.
Candace's mother was overcome with grief. She knew that her daughter was not coming back home.
Her boyfriend, Derek, was distraught, upset. This brought finality to it. For a while, she didn't know where her daughter was, and now she knew. She knew her daughter was back in these woods under a mattress.
How, like, someone could have callous disregard for human life. Slaughtering someone and just putting their body on the mattress, like, that's crazy to me.
But what's truly unsettled police is the possible connection between Candace's murder and a similar slaying several months earlier in nearby DeKalb County.
A teenage girl was abducted while on break out in the parking lot and was taken around the corner from where she worked and stabbed.
Her name was Maya Diaz, and just like Candace, she was a good girl. She went to school, she was beloved, but unfortunately, she was pulled from her car and murdered.
Investigators in Forest Park reach out to their counterparts in DeKalb to compare notes.
The police noted the similarity in both cases. They both occurred on the west side of Atlanta, and that they involved young women of color, which means that there may be a connection between the two crimes.
We had to go down the avenue and find out maybe we have a serial killer on our hands, and we need to make sure that he's not going to strike again.
Unlike Candace's case, in the case of Maya Diaz, several witnesses came forward to identify a possible suspect, a man named Alonzo Martinez. And according to the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, just a few days earlier, their own investigators had been able to track down Alonzo and bring him in for questioning.
The suspect admitted killing the first girl, Maya Diaz, after he was arrested.
Wondering if Alonzo Martinez had anything to do with Candace's death, detectives traveled to the DeKalb County Jail to speak to him.
He adamantly denied having any involvement in Candace Parchment's disappearance. And this was after he admitted to the other stabbing.
You fools got the wrong guy. I wasn't even in town that night.
He had an alibi. He was out of town. He was nowhere around. So there was no way in the world that he could have taken Candace away or killed her when she went missing.
Just when it seems like detectives have reached yet another dead end, in December of 2010, a friend of Candace's by the name of Layla Campbell comes forward with a startling new piece of information.
Layla Campbell was one of the people that investigators initially questioned about Candace's disappearance.
Thanks for coming in to speak with us, Layla.
She was worried about revealing this information because she didn't want to betray Candace. And now that her body had been found, it prompted her to have a change of heart.
So you said you had some information about Candace that might be helpful to us.
Something happened to Candace. Something bad.
Layla told detectives about a suspicious incident that happened with Candace 3 months prior to her going missing.
The incident occurred in January of 2010. Layla eventually admits to detectives that someone had tried to rape Candace.
What happened, Layla?
Candace never told Layla who the perpetrator was, who tried to rape her. But she knew that it was very, very painful for her, that it was difficult for her to go through. Layla respected Candace, and she kept the secret. She never disclosed it to anyone.
Candace's reluctance to talk about the attempted rape is fairly common. We see that on a regular basis. People just don't want to talk. They don't want to get involved. They don't want police around.
I think that, unfortunately, the last couple of months of her life were ones where they were spent for her with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and just thoughts of this unfortunate incident that had taken place.
However, thanks to Layla Campbell, police now have a new lead in what was rapidly becoming a cold case.
That was very crucial of giving us somebody to look at and a possibility of the motive for the murder.
But who attempted to rape Candace on the night in question? And how, if at all, is it tied to her murder 3 months later? Once again, the first person detectives want to speak with is boyfriend Derek Bailey.
Derek Bailey has spoken with investigators twice, and he had a pretty solid alibi. But it didn't mean that he couldn't be the perpetrator who tried to rape her.
These were two very young teenagers. What if Candace was not yet ready to get intimate, and it was Derek who was trying to pressure her into something that she wasn't ready for?
Could it have all been connected, and was Derek at the center of what took place?
Determined to get to the truth, investigators conduct a third interview with Derek Bailey.
Detectives start to grill him about this attempted rape incident, and they want to know whether or not he was involved with this incident and whether or not there were any issues between Candace and Derek.
Come on, Derek. You wanted something from Candace that she wasn't willing to give. Is that it?
No, man. Listen, I loved Candace. I loved Candace. I would never do nothing like that to hurt her.
He said, that's not something I would do to Candace. I respected her, she respected me.
Derek swears he had nothing to do with this attempted rape. But finally he breaks down and he admits that he knew about it.
Look, man, somebody did try to rape Candace, but it wasn't me.
He made her promise. He didn't want to divulge what she had said to him, and he didn't want to break that confidence. But Derek had a very difficult time in dealing with keeping the secret for Candace.
It's all right, son. Just tell the truth. What do you know?
Candace, she told me the name of the person who tried to attack her.
December 2010. Police investigating the killing of 15-year-old Candace Parchment have just learned that 3 months prior to her murder, she was the alleged victim of an attempted rape. To learn more about the attack and whether or not he's the one who perpetrated it, detectives have brought Candace's boyfriend, 16-year-old Derek Bailey, in for another round of questioning.
Derek swears he was not involved in this attempted rape, but during this interview, he breaks down and tells detectives that he did actually know about it.
Candace, she told me the name of the person who tried to attack her. His name was Justin Randolph.
Justin went to Forest Park High School as well. I believe Justin was in 9th grade at the time of the incident.
They lived relatively close to each other within the same neighborhood.
According to Derek, like many of the other young men at Forest Park High School, Justin harbored a crush on Candace. But only Justin took it personal when Derek and Candace became a thing.
He took it hard on that part of her going with another boy in school.
Derek tells police that according to Candace, she thought Justin was harmless. But one night in January 2010, he tried to force himself on her. Derek says Candace made him promise he wouldn't tell anyone about the attempted rape, but he couldn't stop himself from confronting Justin.
Hey, bro.
He just did what he believed a man should do in protecting his woman.
What the hell wrong with you, man? What are you talking about, bro? Listen, you mess with Candace again. You talk to Candace again. I will kill you, man. You understand that?
Listening to Derek, police can't help but wonder if his efforts to protect Candace may have backfired.
Justin may have thought, how dare she go around and start telling people what had taken place.
Detectives know they need to speak to Justin Randolph immediately.
That same afternoon, police obtained permission to speak to 16-year-old Justin Randolph about the alleged attack on Candace.
From the start, Justin denied any involvement.
He denies everything, said he had nothing to do with this attempted rape of Candace.
Man, what are you talking about? I didn't rape her. I don't need to rape girls, trust me, I get plenty of them.
The very first time we talked to him, he was very angry. He told us how much he didn't like Candace.
She was stuck up. I didn't kill her.
Detectives aren't convinced Justin is telling the truth and ask him to supply an alibi for the night of Candace's murder.
Justin told me that he was at his father's house the night of the homicide. So he's pretty much putting himself somewhere else completely.
Police attempt to verify Justin's story with his father, but he is unable to recall Justin's exact whereabouts on the night in question.
Detectives are very suspicious of Justin, but at this point, they have no physical evidence tying him to the scene. They only have Derek's statement, and so they have no other choice but to let him go.
Though they had enough probable cause to question Justin, it isn't enough for an arrest warrant. Nevertheless, police are confident they are on the right track. They believe that if they can successfully tie Justin to the attempted rape, they'll have enough probable cause to charge him with Candace's murder. But despite their best efforts to connect Justin to the crime, 9 months pass with no new leads in the case. Finally, in October of 2011, detectives catch the break they've been looking for.
Her mother came to the police station and she told me that when she was packing Candace's room up, she noticed that she had a diary and she left it for me to go through the diary.
Like many teenagers, Candace had a diary that she kept hidden away. During the police initial search of the home, they were still looking for signs of a break-in, not a diary.
I immediately opened up some pages of the diary and she described what happened with the attempted rape.
The account of the attack laid out in Candace's diary largely mirrors the statements given by Layla Campbell and Derek Bailey. However, there is one major difference.
She names not one, but 2 attackers.
According to Candace's diary, she was attacked by 16-year-old Justin Randolph and by his friend, 19-year-old Marche Hickman.
Marche Hickman was also a student at Forest Park High School.
Marche lived in an apartment complex that was right next to the neighborhood of where Candace and Justin lived at.
In her diary, Candace chronicled the terrifying experience that unfolded on the night of January 5th, 2010.
She was just walking in the neighborhood and they encountered each other.
As they went to hang out, they eventually ended up in this abandoned house to keep Candace from trying to leave. Justin picked up a rake and he struck Candace with it.
She knew something bad was about to happen.
Thankfully, some quick thinking on Candace's part helped thwart their advances.
They were holding her down and they wouldn't let her leave. She saw a car go by.
It's my mom! She's looking for me!
Because of that, it spooked them and it interrupted, essentially, the attempted rape. Candace was able to get up and run away from the location.
But according to Candace's diary, that wasn't the last she heard from her attackers.
After the attempted rape, Candace received a text from Marche apologizing and blaming it on Justin. He offered Candace $100 to be quiet and not say anything.
Detectives don't know why Candace never mentioned Marche's name to her boyfriend Derek. But that's not the only question this diary entry poses.
Could these two have worked together to somehow silence Candace to cover up the attempted rape?
Based on what was in the diary, certainly both individuals, Justin and Marche, were suspected for the murder of Candace.
On October 21st, 2011, police make contact with Justin Randolph at his parents' house in Forest Park and detain him for suspicion of murder and attempted rape. As for Marche Hickman, they have to look no further than the Clayton County Detention Center, where Marche has just been arrested on an unrelated burglary charge.
Marche was accused of breaking and entering into someone's house.
Detectives decide to question Justin Randolph first and confront him with the account of the attempted rape spelled out in Candace's diary.
Justin was lying. In Candace's diary was one thing, and Justin was telling another thing.
Justin, we got Candace's diary. We know what you and Marche did to her that night.
When confronted with this new evidence, Justin breaks down.
We got him to admit to the attempted rape when we interviewed him a second time and told him that he was a suspect in her murder.
While Justin admits to taking part in the attempted rape, he remains adamant he had nothing to do with Candace's murder. Instead, he pins that crime squarely on Marche.
Marche, he thought Candace was going around telling people what we did.
A couple weeks before the actual homicide took place, Marche sent Justin a text message saying, "Let's kill Candace."
Justin couldn't believe it. He didn't know why Marche would want to do something like this and decided he wanted nothing to do with it.
I'm not a killer. It was all Marche's idea.
That afternoon, detectives charged Justin with attempted rape. With his statement in tow, they now turn their attention to Marche Hickman.
At first, Marche denies everything. He denies having anything to do with Candace's attempted rape or her murder.
Look, man, I don't know nothing about what happened with Candace. Man, I barely knew the girl.
But Marche's confidence wavers when detectives bring up Candace's diary entry.
He looked defeated once we start talking about attempted rape, but he was adamant that he didn't try to rape her. He was still deflecting things back to Justin. Justin was doing this and Justin was doing that.
Okay, we made a mistake at the house that night, but man, I didn't even want to be there, man. It was Justin's idea.
He played the same card that Justin did. It was all Justin's idea. So here police have two suspects and both are blaming each other.
When detectives ask Marche where he was the night Candace disappeared, his answer catches them off guard.
You know, I was back behind the apartment, like by the woods, just smoking a cigarette.
He claims he was outside just hanging out when Candace walked by.
But Marche claims he wasn't the only one who'd laid eyes on Candace that night.
Someone else was hanging around in the area looking creepy and weird.
I saw her walking by, and some creepy-looking dude was following her.
Did you say anything to her?
No, I ran in after them, but by the time I got there, she was gone.
Investigators wonder, could there have been an unidentified male subject who stalked and killed Candace on the night in question? Or is Marche spinning another lie to throw them off his trail?
Who actually murdered Candace? Who is the guilty party?
It will require some expert police work to answer that question once and for all.
You could tell he was wanting to talk about something, but he was not going to be talking about it without being pushed.
Homicide investigators in Clayton County, Georgia are in the middle of interrogating 19-year-old Marche Hickman, one of 3 possible suspects in the murder of 15-year-old Candace Parchment.
Candace had written in her diary that Marche Hickman and Justin Randolph, who were 2 classmates of hers, had tried to rape her just a few weeks before she vanished from her home.
Could these 2 teens have acted together and murdered Candace in order to cover up this attempted rape?
Marche had added a 3rd suspect to the mix when he told police that he saw a strange man follow Candace into the woods the night that she disappeared.
But as their interview with Marche continues, detectives get the feeling he's hiding something.
Marche's demeanor during the interview, you could tell he was very nervous. He was wanting to talk about something. He was not going to be talking about it without being pushed just a little bit.
To give Marche that extra push, detectives take an unorthodox, albeit entirely legal, approach.
What if I told you we have DNA evidence that you were at the crime scene that night?
Detectives bluffed him and implied that maybe his DNA was found among the remains of Candace.
Detectives had found no DNA on the scene. They barely could identify the body, so they couldn't have DNA.
That may have been the case, but as detectives hoped, their bluff pays off.
Okay, all right, I was there.
Marche breaks down, and he finally admits that the story that he told about the stranger following Candace in the woods was a lie.
Marche admits that he was with Candace the night of the murder, but he says that everything that happened after that was an accident.
Marche claims he doesn't know why Candace was out that night, but he followed her into the woods and, as he put it, tried to apologize for the attempted rape.
Hey, Candace.
She was just walking with him and talking with him.
I was just trying to run up to her and apologize for what happened.
Hey, Candace, look, man, I just want to let you know I'm sorry for everything that happened.
He told us that he put his arm around her.
I gave her a hug. I guess it was too tight, because all of a sudden, she like passed out or something.
He claimed he put his arm, his elbow around her neck, and he accidentally squeezed her too hard, and she passed out.
After Candace stopped breathing, Marche panicked.
He just laid her down on the ground and dragged her off the trail and put her under the mattress.
It's a stunning confession, but one detectives already know isn't true.
I believe the cause of death was a puncture wound or a stab wound to the chest.
I guess you wouldn't know anything about Candace being stabbed then.
Stabbed? No, I don't know.
He did not admit to stabbing her at all, but he may have choked her and stabbed her at the same time.
Though Marche won't cop to stabbing Candace, police have everything they need to throw the book at him.
Marche was charged with felony murder, malice murder, concealing a death, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, attempted rape, and false imprisonment.
On April 8, 2013, Marche's trial gets underway. Prosecutors begin by laying out the series of events they believe led to Candace Parchman's death.
The prosecution believed that Candace was murdered because of what happened during that attempted rape. Marche got it in his head that she was talking to people about it, and he didn't want her to talk anymore about it, and murder was the answer in his mind.
He was able to lure her away from her home and get her to the crime scene. It might have been with a promise to give her the $100 he was going to give her for not talking about the attempted rape. It's not clear exactly how the death took place. He probably tried to choke her. At some point, he pulled out a knife and stabbed her. Her death may have been a result of both.
Prosecutors also assert that Marche held on to Candace's phone after her murder. And when Candace's mother began desperately trying to reach her the following morning, Marche sent the 2 text messages, trying to make it seem like Candace had run away.
My guess is that after Marche sent those text messages to Candace's mother, he destroyed the phone. No trace of it was ever found.
But when it comes time to present their case, the defense asserts that prosecutors have the wrong man.
They also put up an expert witness, a psychologist, who testified not that Marche's ultimate confession was false, but that Marche was the sort of person who could be made to give a false confession.
His IQ was on the average spectrum that would lead him to be susceptible to giving false confessions and susceptible to just going along with individuals telling him what they wanted him to do. He was put in a room and he was interrogated over the course of 2 days for many, many hours.
Marche's interview with the police was lengthy. It went on for several hours. And anytime an interrogation lasts for a long time, it can raise issues as to voluntariness.
They broke him because of the fact that he just felt as if he was cornered. He was against this, the power of the police, and he's sitting there and he's shackled and they're telling him he can't go anywhere until he tells them what they want to hear.
But if Marche was innocent, who had killed Candace? According to the defense, the real killer is none other than Justin Randolph.
Marche was the easier individual for the police to go after. Justin was cunning. He knew how to survive, and so he was never going to walk into a trap and give himself up, and he never did. He tried to pass everything off on Marche.
On April 12, 2013, the case is turned over to the jury. It doesn't take long for them to reach a verdict.
Marche Hickman was found guilty of the murder of Candace Parchment. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I do feel like justice was served in this case. I feel like if you decide to go down the wrong path or you decide to take someone else's life, then you were 100% culpable for all your actions, and you need to be punished by the fullest extent of the law.
As for Justin Randolph, prosecutors want to make sure he faces justice for his role in Candace's attempted rape.
Justin eventually pled guilty to the attempted rape.
His sentence is 20 years with 15 to serve.
However, due to his age and his spotless record prior to the incident, the court still shows Justin some leniency.
Justin was offered first offender probation. If he completes the probated part of the sentence successfully, then he won't have a conviction on his record.
Justin and Marche, they're sociopaths. They don't feel anything for the woman that they're dealing with, and it's all about fun and games. It's all about getting kicks. It's all about getting what they want out of it at her expense.
The convictions mark an ending to a heartbreaking and tumultuous case.
By the end of the trial, it was very somber. So many details that were revealed on the trial that it broke people's hearts. I believe the defense attorney, Ms. Palmer, she even cried because she felt so bad for Candace's mother.
But the tragedy of what happened to Candace Parchment has left many in Forest Park wondering. Had it not been for the stigma of sexual assault, perhaps Candace could have come forward before it was too late.
It's okay to tell us when someone's trying to hurt you. You may be scared, but this could have changed the course of what happened to Candace had she had told us that this guy tried to rape her. We may have been able to do something to keep her from dying.
It's tragic that these young people would be involved in something so violent and heinous. She was a young girl, beautiful, had a bright future ahead of her.
People like Candace, I need that energy around me. People that's driven like that, it's priceless. You don't get too many friends like that. You really don't.